Welcome everybody to our webcast. My name is Erica Basil and I will be facilitating today's session. Before we get started, there are just a few housekeeping items that we want to go through. Please note that all phone lines are muted for the duration of this event. We will make time at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. Should you have any questions during the webcast, please submit them in the questions window in your GoToWebinar control panel. Time permitting, we will do our best to answer all the questions. Otherwise, we'll be sure to follow up with you individually. This call will be recorded and made available online for on-demand viewing. You will receive a follow-up email in the next few days with a link to the recording. If you need any technical assistance during the call, start a chat with the organizer and we will be happy to assist you. With that, let's begin, and I will now start the recording. Today, we are presenting e-commerce trends that will shape your 2021 strategy. We are here today with Tim Harris, Chief Strategy Officer at Arbella. So without further ado, let's get started. Tim, you have the floor.
Thanks, Erica. Yep, so as Erica mentioned, we're going over some trends that we really witnessed going through 2020. We will kind of talk about some of those trends. We'll talk a little bit about Microsoft's point of view of e-commerce, and then we'll just sort of dive into some of the maybe unique attributes that aren't as obvious out there around B2C and B2B, and we'll open it up for questions. As Eric's mentioned, use the chat window in your GoToWebinar, post the chats. We'll be monitoring those as we go through, so we can try to address those as it happens. For those that are just getting up to speed on Arbella, we're about 210 plus resources here, primarily in North America and Europe. We've got multiple offices around the country. We are one of the Inner Circle members with Microsoft. We also are the CRM runner-up Worldwide Partner of the Year and Field Service US Partner of the Year for Connected Field Service. We really represent the full stack at Microsoft to enable our customers to do their digital transformation more effectively. And we service a number of industries from health and life sciences, manufacturing, distribution, and other industries such as retail, engineering, and connected field service. So we'll dive in here. I'll just introduce myself really quickly. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Arbella. I've been with Arbella for about 6 years now. If you want to reach out and connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Harris Timothy, or you can connect with me at Harris Tim on LinkedIn. So I'll leave that up for a second, just if you want to take a snapshot of that. Today we're going to be diving into the e-commerce trends, and I don't think there's ever been a time like we've had in the last year with the pandemic that we've gone through. A lot of things have changed in business. We've seen a lot of economic collapse, as well as some industries really thriving. We've seen supply chain disruptions if you're bringing things in from overseas. We've got people having to do shelter in place. We've got restrictions on whether you can enter a store, whether you can only do curbside pickup. Even the hours and the number of people allowed in physical brick and mortar have changed. Employee safety is at an all-time high. Changing customer habits are really prevalent. And really, organizations have been scrambling quite a bit to pivot to new models to support their customers in the last year. They're also been trying to stabilize their supply chains and expand out to multiple vendors and so forth. But if you look at one of the biggest trends out there, we look at the e-commerce space and just the incredible growth that we've seen in e-commerce. You can kind of take a look there across some of the major retailers from Walmart all the way down to Target there of their prior year to this year. It's just incredible growth in the amount of e-commerce transactions. And if you look at some of the Forbes stats out there today, there was a $52 billion increase in e-commerce in the last year. There was a 75% increase on Memorial Day, just to give you an example, from $2 billion to $3.5 billion in spending. There was a 10% increase in mobile sales. And I think one of the other interesting trends is that 195% increase in the buy online, pick up in store. So that's your curbside pickups that are happening out there. And if you look at, SEM Rush and some of the industries that are out there and looking at the percentage change in e-commerce across different categories, from healthcare increasing at almost 100%, books and literature, hobbies and leisure, computer electronics, beauty and fitness. Everything is increased by anywhere between 70% up to almost 200% in that online space. So there's no doubt that e-commerce is going to continue to be a bigger play out there. Whether you're a manufacturer or whether you're a direct-to-consumer type of sale, those trends are going to continue to expand here in 2021. So, if you look at where Microsoft is really focusing a lot of their e-commerce today is engaging across multiple channels, so that true omni-channel experience, whether that's chatting with people online, to bringing their carts directly into a brick and mortar store, curbside pickup, all those different omni-channel type elements attached to it, but doing so in a very integrated fashion. I mean, in order to differentiate online today, you build that loyal following, and you need to exceed the expectations of customers in terms of return policies, in terms of ease of use and communication, and so forth. Getting everything built and run on a digital commerce platform, streamlining and optimizing your retail processes and operations. So that's everything from friction-free commerce experiences to optimizing your supply chain and back office using artificial intelligence and so forth. And then really getting that flexibility and security that you need. Obviously, security is incredibly important, but that flexibility around configurable platform that allows you to integrate in the way that you need to integrate and so forth. So interesting trends from Microsoft. So we're going to start off today talking a little bit about the B2C space, so the business to consumer space. I think the first slide is something we're all pretty familiar with, the Amazonification of the space. What does that really mean? It talks about the ease of experience for an end user. There's very few people that haven't been exposed to that Amazon e-commerce experience, and they expect that level of service now from even the smallest mom and pop shops all the way up to the biggest organizations like the Walmarts and whatnot of the world now. But what we're also seeing is that Amazonification being pushed down into the B2C or the B2B space as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So that ease of experience, fast shipping, always available products, ease of return, so that whole returns process and refund process needs to be super seamless. How can I easily return goods? Amazon does this in a great way. You can go into a Kohl's and return items. You can return it to UPS. You can have someone pick it up from your house. There's just you can take it to an Amazon location. There's just so many ways to easily return goods that it takes away the fear factor of buying, which then allows more sales to take place. The multiple payment methods. So people are demanding a lot of different ways to pay nowadays. Even Amazon has the ability to plug in their payment protocols into your websites today. We have the PayPals of the world. We have the standard credit card offerings, being able to do it directly from your bank account, integrating with payment plans. So we've seen Affirm and these other different organizations out there that will quite easily put you onto a payment plan over a period of time to maybe purchase that laptop or that large big screen TV that you want to do and make it more affordable for the end user. And that's going into products as cheap as like $200 all the way up to several $1,000 type products. But it takes that additional that additional cost outlay for your customers and makes it easy for them to do very simply without having to put the burden of putting those payment plans into the e-commerce provider. Exemplary customer service. So this goes beyond the call center. Social media, chat on websites, email communication has to be seamless, has to be handed off from one type to another, and it has to be very responsive. And we're seeing that across the board as well. So building loyal customer base and hyper personalization. So segmenting and scoring your targets and customers is really important nowadays, especially in e-commerce world. The e-commerce piece is the final horizon to get someone to your site to actually make the purchase. But how do you attract them to your website? How do you bring those people in a trusted manner to your website so that they want to make those particular purchase? They talk about content being king, so being able to provide content around, information about your products, or Instagram ads that are describing or advertising your products, and really being able to map out your customers' buying journey to say, how do they find out about your product? How do they associate and trust your product? And then how do you actually get them converted on your e-commerce website to do that? So what we're seeing in parallel is investments in e-commerce are running almost in exact parallel with investments in marketing. And those two have to go very hand in hand in order to support that. But being able to collect all that data about your customers is even more important. So there's a 48% increase in sales when you personalizing offers and targeting individuals at where they want to be met. So how do you do that? You need to have a customer data platform that really segments and categorizes and profiles your prospects all the way through to a customer, so that you can hyper target them with the right advertising in the right places at the right times. And then 65% of brands are increasing their influencer marketing. So what is influencer marketing? If LeBron James talks about your shoes, or if he talks about your products, that will carry more weight with people that relate to him as an individual than if you were just to market to them directly. So having influencers, and there's a lot of social media influencers, from the typical influencers being sports stars and movie actors and so on, down to smaller influencers today that are, social media brand type of people. So YouTubers and TikTok and other type of places where you can slide your brand into the content that they're creating, that then associates and relates to their following base to gather that information. The other thing is interactive product visuals. So we're seeing a lot out there, if you're selling furniture, if you're selling, artwork, to be able to visualize those products within the space of a consumer. So IKEA does this really well today. Amazon has started to do this, where I can look at a couch or a coffee table, and actually using augmented reality on your phone, looking at your phone, uses your camera to say, where would you want to place this table? And then you drop the table into your room. And then you can start to visualize what that table might look like within your room, or that couch, and then be able to actually see whether that's something that you want to purchase or not. So it's removing that barrier of guesswork. I'm really not sure about the size. I'm really not sure about the color. I'm not sure how it plays well with the other furniture I have in my home. Then be able to visualize that very rapidly. So thinking outside the box and how people interact with your products, and then bring that into their cycle, can really help out with some certain types of products out there. So focus points, specifically around the B2C space. So we talk about, seamless transition from online to in-store and vice versa. So starting in-store and going back to online. So you want to carry that experience between those locations. You want to direct them to find what they need. So for instance, Home Depot does this today. I can go online, I can add a bunch of products to my cart, and if I want to pick it up in store, I can either just check out right there and then go pick it up at the order counter, or it'll actually tell me all the products that I've added to my cart. It'll allow me to select the store, and it'll tell me the exact row, aisle, rack, and bin where those items are located in the store. So it'll say you want to go to aisle 45, you want to go halfway down the aisle, and you'll be able to find that plumbing item. But what that really helps a customer do is to be super efficient, to be able to find things within their stores. Even though it's done on the e-commerce platform, we can then potentially later on see if that person went into the store to purchase that, and marry up the data together as we collect, credit card names and other details about that individual. Obviously, we have in-store and curbside pickup, which is another option for being able to get that more rapidly, perhaps, than the delivery system. We're starting to see a lot of, big retailers like Walmart's and Amazon's and whatnot go to a 24-hour delivery window, or potentially even same-day delivery. On the advertising side, knowing your future buyers, how to identify them, what data is required to identify those people, how do you segment them into various customer journeys, and how do you focus and target them in the right way. An absolute must is building those brand awareness. On the B2C side, typically, if you're a large brand like Nike or something like that, your brand awareness is less required than if you're a typical, SMB, small, medium-sized type business. Because if you're a small, medium-sized business and I'm selling maybe my widget that's out there today, how do I know that? I don't even know your brand, so why would I trust your product? So what you need to do is you need to basically boost your brand as much as you're boosting your individual products, so that when people see something from, an electric bike company, if I just purchased an electric bike, if you look at, Rad Bikes as an example, I was getting a lot of advertising about their brand, their culture, the people that buy their bikes, how people are using those bikes. It was all about a whole culture around their brand. And then it got into the specific offerings of, what bike they wanted to advertise to me in order to actually purchase. So you can purchase all kinds of content. If someone searches for e-bikes, you can purchase that search criteria and start hyper targeting those people on Instagrams and Facebooks and other, the web content that's out there today. And what you want to start with is that brand recognition. Why would someone want to buy from your brand versus maybe a more trusted or larger brand that's out there today, and then targeting them with the right products? So building that trust. You can do that through influence marketing. You can do that through associative marketing. Maybe if I already trust another brand, I can associate my brand with that one and then build that credibility to make those conversions. So we also want to learn what your buyer does and doesn't do when purchasing your product. So creating recommendations, upsells, cross-sells, all powered by artificial intelligence, can really start to look at patterns. We've seen this in the Amazon world where you're maybe searching for a computer monitor, and at the bottom it'll say people that looked at this computer monitor also looked at these computer monitors. And it also says, hey, people that bought this monitor also bought this cable or this power source or whatever else you might need with that particular monitor. So bringing those insights into your e-commerce site about the journey and the behavior also kind of helps you determine what needs to be done there. So a lot of artificial intelligence, machine learning type applications can really help with that as well. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the B2B side, so the business to business. So educating on brand is key. So we talked about this a little bit on the B2C side. This is even more important on the B2B side. Understanding what your branding is all about as a company, you need to be known for what you do. So how do you be known for what you do? So one of the things I mentioned the Rad Bike example earlier. So it's an e-bike company. One of the things they did is they put out all kinds of videos, not just on how to assemble their bikes or how to maintain their bikes or how, the different features or capabilities or whatever that their bikes had, but they went broader in terms of the context of the industry. What to look for when you're purchasing an e-bike? What do the different wattages mean in the battery? How does the hub model, or how does a hub work on an electric bike? What should you purchase gearing or not gearing for your bike? Under what scenarios does it work? But providing those instructional videos, and we see this a lot in the building material industry as well. If you have a special building material application, such as maybe a special taping or glue that for flooring applications, getting people to understand what your product is about and why they might want to use it, you need to go broader in terms of why someone would want to, best practices around laying flooring, and then inject your product into those kind of conversations and discussions so that you're known as a credible source for that industry, and then you can start to position your products more effectively around that. So you'll see a lot of brands out there today having a YouTube channel that really do very high quality videos about what they do, their products, the overall industry, how to select their products in that industry. And maybe it doesn't arrive at their product, but they're still being seen as that leader in the industry around that particular guidance and that information. When you build that trust, you build that trust in your brand, and then people are more likely to go with your products that way. Often influencers walkthroughs can be helpful. So if you're in the building material industry, having Bob Villa, go through and talk about what your product is and why it can really help you, with whatever build you're doing out there today. Again, it creates a level of credibility because people trust that brand or that person out there today. So using that influencer type of approach for your brands to gain that credibility more rapidly is another big thing. There's a ton of YouTubers out there today, or social media people that will talk about your particular industry. So how can you get them to review your product? How can you get them to maybe you give them a free version of your product, like an e-bike, and say, hey, if you post about this, we'll give you a free e-bike. As a surfer, I see today, like Murph Bikes is an electric bike company. About 3 of the major surfers that I follow all have been donated Murph bikes, and they have content that's being pushed out on their social media pages all about how they use their electric bikes to get to the surf breaks and everything else. So it creates a buzz around that particular brand of bike as being known as, hey, this is the bike you use if you surf. So then people will start to associate those things. So it works very well in terms of that influencing marketing. Leadership type postings, so that gets into, why should I believe you're the best at electric bikes? And that comes back to the types of content that you're pushing out there about you. And of course, SEO still plays a huge part in optimizing your content. And then really your branding advertising is anywhere between 5-to-1 to 10-to-1, depending on your industry, of your advertising. Compared to the actual target of your individual product. What you don't want to do is just target people 100% with your advertising about your product. You need to kind of talk about your brand as much as you do, actually significantly more than your product itself. The other interesting thing that you can do around configurations. So we all know configurations are big in the B2B space. You want to be able to allow the end customer, of course, to make the right selections and be able to dynamically see how that adjusts price, how it looks on the product, going through all the various options that are really included for whether you're configuring a car or whether you're configuring, a computer or whatever else that might be out there. There's always a series of options that people want. People like choice. They like to be able to configure. They like to make it unique. So having a configurator is really important. Now, that's really not big news. We've been doing configurators for a long time on the web. But what we haven't really done a great job of, and if you think about how your engineers need to build your products in a B2B space, you have to think about what information would make their job more effective and easier. How do I price my products more effectively to maximize the options that are out there? And one thing that hasn't been done very well out there today is to collect the data of how your end customer is really using the configurations of your products online. So what we've been doing lately is we've been pulling the log files from the configurators for our customers. And we've been looking at the individual ways that people will go through a configurator. How many people move the color from the default white to the metallic gray? Did they end up selecting that gray, or did they select another color? Which colors did they select? Which ones did they not select? That will give me, in an aggregated manner, that could give me great insights as to maybe this blue is not very popular. So why do we continue to offer this blue for less than maybe 1% of the people that even look at it, let alone purchase it? Whoops. Sorry, I clicked too many buttons there. So the same thing, as I go through a wheels configuration, how many people are choosing these different wheels? Now, when I select the next wheel option and it's an extra $1,000 or $2,000, when that price is then displayed to the user, what is the cost benefit analysis that they're doing in their head to say, is that additional wheel configuration worth the $2,000? What if I change the price to $1,500? What if I change it to $1,750? How does that adjust basically the selection of those particular wheels? Is it a pricing issue, or is it a design issue with that particular wheel? But again, collecting the interactions through that configurator of what people clicked on, what they didn't click on, basically the information that's displayed to them, whether it's price, the look, etc., and then adjusting those parameters over time to see if that influences people one way or another, gets you insights on what your product can actually is actually being demanded by your customers today. And I don't think there's a lot of people that are really analyzing how people are using the configurator and the types of options that are selected or deselected and the pricing that gets adjusted from that. So analyzing that data in an aggregated manner or even a segmented manner will allow you to see the insights of what people see as valuable for your product, what options are popular and not popular, and then it'll allow you to, from a engineering perspective or a product marketing perspective, come up with better options or better pricing to attract those customers to actually purchase. Obviously, in the configurator, we can cross-sell and upsell as well. So maybe you want a tow hitch, maybe you want a bike rack, maybe you want some other ski rack attached to this vehicle. Being able to offer those additional cross-sells and upsells really allow that. Tesla does a great job of this today, which is where I stole this configurator from, of doing a lot of upsells there towards the end of the process. So the other element in a B2B world is the importance of CRM. One of the challenges that we see in B2B spaces is that your products are not as straightforward as consumer-based products. If I'm buying shampoo or if I'm buying, a cell phone, that's a lot less complex than if I'm buying a, industrial hot water tank for my particular plant or my hotel. So obviously those carry a lot of additional configuration, and I may not have all the information available to me as a buyer to be able to complete that. So where's my abandonment rate on the e-commerce site? So if you look at the average today in the B2B space, there's a 63% average on the abandonment rate. In the B2C space, it's actually even more. It's about 70%. 56% of abandoned carts are related to unexpected costs. So what does that mean? Unexpected costs are things like, oh, you also need to pay another $1,000 in shipping, or maybe there's an installation fee, or maybe there's, tax or other things that are included that, balloon up the price to a number that's too high. Those additional costs that aren't revealed until the final, invoice step before you pay, is typically a very large portion of the abandonment of carts today. Now, 43% of those costs are related to shipping costs. So of that 56% of the abandoned carts, 43% of those are related to high shipping costs, especially in a B2B space where we're dealing with larger, more complex products. Maybe they're LTL, maybe they require specialized shipping and so forth. Being upfront with your shipping costs or embedding those costs into the product itself will help avoid some of those challenges out there. Now, follow-up emails on abandoned shopping carts have a 43% open rate and a 21% click-through rate, which basically means that of those 63% that are abandoned, a little less than half will actually open up an email about, hey, how can we help you with this, with your order? We see that you didn't actually finish it, etc. And then if there's additional things they can click through on there, like, pick up where you left off or what have you, 21% of those will actually click through on that. That can really increase your or reduce your abandonment rate. So 42% of buyers in a B2B believe they don't get answers fast enough. So this is a big challenge in the B2B space because those products are more complex and they often have a lot of questions that need to get answered in order to actually complete the sale. There's a lot of people that don't follow up today, or they don't get the answers fast enough. So do you have the ability to self-service those answers? Do you have an online chat? Do you respond to emails in a timely manner? Because typically 31% of people indicated that sellers don't follow up unless they're being asked. So a lot of times this is where the CRM piece really comes into importance. So when that shopping cart is not finalized, that needs to come back into your CRM system either as a lead or an opportunity, depending on how you're structuring that. And then you need to be able to have the right process and the right team structure, whether it's a call center or whether it's a inside tech sales team or what have you, to deal with those abandoned items. Do you call down on the customer? Do you email the customer? Do you ask questions to help them through their buying journey to make sure they get exactly what they need so they can transact in the right way? So a lot of times people are rate shopping, and that's fine. You can figure that out. Did someone abandon a configured product? If they did, where in the configuration did they abandon it? Maybe there's an indicator there that your configurator isn't clear enough, or these are typically things that customers don't have answers to today. The same rules apply for abandoned shopping carts. You need to have that that connection back to the sales team so that you can talk through that. And did they leave due to lack of stock? So sometimes it'll say, well, that'll take you 6 weeks to get that because we don't have any in stock today. Is that an issue with your current planning process to make sure these items are in stock? Can you ship from a different warehouse? Are there other things that we can do to support that customer through that process? Was the sales technical in nature, and did they get lost? This happens a lot in the larger, industrial goods, building materials, etc. And that you want to follow up, and availability are large drivers to online purchases. So having someone do that follow up will often result in that sale actually being executed. So making sure that you're collecting contact details for the customer before they get to the final screen will help you with that follow-up capability. Having a team that's structured behind that really spends their time following up on these items and answering questions of customers and helping guiding them through the process, either through a chatbot or through a follow-up is also another big thing that can help with that loss of sale. Let's go ahead to the next one here. So that kind of talks a little bit about the chatbots that we also want to discuss here. So interestingly enough, 60% of customers have not leveraged chatbots have leveraged chatbots in the last 12 months. By 2021, which is where we're at right now, 80% of online companies will have chatbots, and we're seeing this as a big demand out there in the market today. So chatbots are actually the preferred method of support amongst millennials. So if you have millennial buyers out there today, they much prefer to chat with someone online than have a phone call with somebody, versus even email for that matter. The ease of creating chatbots is becoming easier and easier, and we can actually leverage pre-built artificial intelligence and what we call bot builders to actually automate some of that process. So you can point some of these bot builders to content that maybe you already have in your organization. So maybe they're tech specs on the products, or maybe it's other information that you have about your particular products today. It can actually search that data and respond back to customers intelligently. But you also need to know when to hand that bot off to an actual agent. So at what point in time do we actually make that transition? And that transition needs to be seamless. I've seen on a lot of websites out there today, you start off at a bot and it's pretty rapid, pretty quick. And then when that handoff point occurs, you sit there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, waiting for someone to connect to your chatbot. So you've got to have that responsiveness. People don't want to wait around. They don't want to wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes for you to respond and to answer their particular questions that are out there today. So building those bots have to have that seamless handoff. They need to be integrated to the data that you have available for that self-service component, which basically is almost like a call deflection. It's like a chat deflection. So you don't have to have as many people on staff to answer the questions that are out there today. But the times are changing. The way that people want to get support and help are changing. It's not always just phone calls anymore. It's getting more into the online chat world. It's getting into email communications. And it has to be responsive, and it has to be rapid response. So we'll go to the next slide here. Price optimization is also another interesting one out there. So we've seen this in the airline industry for years. We know that if you go in on Monday and you try to book a flight from one country to another, it's $500. Then if you go in later in the day, it's $550. If you go on Tuesday, it's $600, and then it drops down to $450 on Wednesday. That's because they're using price optimization strategies. They're looking at what is the current demand for this, how many people are searching for this flight, how many people have booked this flight, how much space do I have left on it, and they're using all this information to dynamically change the pricing to the end customer, because they know exactly how much demand is out there, they know how much they have in supply, and they know basically the patterns of their customers and to adjust those pricing. Now, as I mentioned, the travel industry has really perfected this over the years. The value of flight is dependent on a number of different factors, but when you're optimizing pricing with your clients using artificial intelligence, you can maximize the value of your products and raise prices slowly over time. We've seen this, for instance, in the steel industry. We had a steel customer that wanted to, that was their biggest competition was, well, when I'm competing on selling steel to someone, one of the biggest costs is the shipping costs to get it from their location to the customer's location. So what they did is they actually started tracking the locations of all their competitors, and they started tracking. They obviously knew their locations that were out there today. And then they had the commodity price of steel, which was fluctuating throughout the day and so forth. And then what they wanted to do is to say, okay, I'm being asked to get a competitive bid for this particular steel product. I know that my competitors are this distance from this particular customer, and I'm this distance from the customer. So what I can do is I can adjust my pricing to be more competitive against my my competition out there to determine exactly what that price should be. So when a customer went to their website to find out what their price was, it was dynamically changing that based on where the job site was, who was purchasing it, whether it was a long-time customer or not, the location of their competitors, the current steel price for the day based on commodity pricing, and a number of other factors that would allow them to maximize their profits, but also at the same time be able to be competitive against competitors that maybe were closer by that were out there today. So they saw a nice little revenue bump by just being able to dynamically change their pricing out there. So that might be something you think about as well. Once you've kind of got a trusted consumer out there, slowly increasing your pricing over time can be done, and there's tons of data to back how you can actually move pricing up over time once you've built that trusted relationship. You don't want to just jack it up, but you want to kind of just slowly introduce additional price into your products and so forth. You'll see this with Netflix today. Every year or so, they increase their monthly fees because they know they got you hooked on their product. The growing mobile trend. I think we all know that mobile is becoming bigger and bigger in the market today. We know that mobility is critical, but it also means that your e-commerce platform, you either need to have an app or your website needs to be very mobile friendly. It's anytime, anywhere access to buying, optimizing your website for mobility, and optimizing the experience for both desktop and mobility is really important. So the growth in mobile shopping versus physical shopping and desktop shopping is really big. By 2021, mobile is predicted to dominate the online sales, driving 54% of all sales. So that means if your e-commerce site is not mobile optimized today, it needs to start moving in that direction. It's certainly very important in the B2C world. It's becoming even more important in the B2B world as well. So mobility plays a huge factor, and the challenge with mobility is that the way that you design your websites, a lot of people are still designing for that desktop version. And the interactivity and the ease of use on mobility, it has to be optimized. And it has to really be simple and easy. And that often requires not only just a responsive website that adjusts to the different resolutions out there, but often means perhaps putting out a mobile application that is heavily optimized for the mobile market. I think the last piece I really want to talk to here is, how do you connect with your end customer if you're selling through wholesale or retail channels? So I'm a consumer today or a manufacturer today, and I sell today through retailers or through wholesalers, but I don't necessarily always get access to that end customer. And getting access to that end customer provides me a ton of details about who that customer is and why they bought my product and so forth. So we all know the whole product warranty piece. Almost every product we buy today ends up with a little card in there somewhere that says, okay, here's my home warranty or my product warranty, and how to register for that. But the ease of that registration process has always been very prohibitive of getting people to do this. In fact, less than 5% of people today actually fill out a warranty card. But recently I purchased a Travel Pro suitcase, and their warranty registration was incredibly simple. they had this card in here, and yes, I could go to a website, or I can go to Facebook, or I could go online and fill things out, but they allowed me to send a photo to Facebook Messenger account, or they allowed me to text this picture of this warranty card to a simple text message. So what I did is I went through and I took a picture of the little camera you see in the bottom left of that card there, and I texted it to them. And what came back was basically a link to complete the registration form. So when I clicked on that form, it essentially took me to a web page, but because I was on my mobile device, and your mobile device typically saves all your address information and phone numbers and everything else, it went to that form and it auto-filled everything in for me based on my browser information. And all I had to do is hit submit, and that was it. I was done. So it's a picture, a text message, and then I click on a link, and I was done. So 3 steps to register in the product for a warranty, which made things incredibly easy to do. So if you're a manufacturer today and you're trying to get to that end customer and really understand who they are, capturing their warranty information in a very seamless way, such as this, is a great way to connect to those customers, which then allow you to build profiles about your customer base, which then allow you to target your customers more effectively and increase your maybe direct sales on e-commerce rather than relying on the wholesale and retail channels to do that for you. So kind of an interesting method and approach to tackling connecting with people that maybe you don't have that direct connection with today to build up that understanding of your consumer down the line. So that's really the final point we have under the B2C. I want to open it up for questions. We kind of saved the last 15 minutes or so here for questions and see if anyone has any questions about what was presented here today.
Yes, thank you, Tim. So at this time, we would like attendees to ask and submit their questions through the questions window in your GoToWebinar control panel. So you can start submitting now, and we will start going through them one by one. And let's see. All right, we got one here, Tim. So what if I don't have an e-commerce website today? Where should I start?
Yeah, so, obviously this is a lot to swallow, if you don't have an e-commerce website at all, but getting up and running with your e-commerce site, you want to make sure that your marketing is tightly integrated with your e-commerce platform. So there's tons of platforms out there. You got Magento, you got Microsoft Dynamics 365 Commerce, we have Dynamic Web, we have a number of these different commerce platforms that are out there today that can really get you up and running quickly with your products, and a shopping cart and all the kind of core concepts for e-commerce. So that's the easy part. I think that really shouldn't take too much to get that going. But what you really want to look for is how do you integrate your marketing components in with that e-commerce website and start collecting that data, profiling your customers, and then being able to target the people on your commerce website more effectively with those cross sells, upsells, and better product offerings. And just keep in mind, the other big thing with any new e-commerce site, or even if you're creating your first digital selling experience, is if your brand isn't well recognized out there today, you've got to do some brand, some brand advertising out there today and talk about the culture that you can build. So hopefully that answered the question.
Yes, thank you, Tim. And we have one more here, and it says, what if we're struggling to get the right conversions? What can we do to help convert more people to buy?
Yeah, so conversion is obviously a big thing. So don't fret, B2C is a 70% abandonment rate today on shopping carts. And we saw, in the B2B world, it's in the mid 60s. So, first off, just know that it's normal on that conversion side, that people do abandon their carts quite frequently. If you're in the B2B market, that follow-up piece is incredibly important. Or if you can build in that chatbot into your online experience, and if you see someone kind of maybe at the shopping cart stage, but they're just paused there, they're not really, actioning things within a certain time frame, pop up that chat window and say, hey, how can I help you? Can I answer any questions about what you're trying to purchase? And basically step them through that process immediately. And the B2C side, follow-up is everything there as well. So collecting the data about, how people are using your site and where they typically abandon things, we go back to a lot of people abandon carts today because of high shipping costs. They abandon your cart because of unexpected costs like installation costs or assembly costs or whatever else might be going along with that. And that can be very daunting for an end consumer that thinks they're about to buy something for $300 and now it's $370. So making sure that you're really transparent and open about the pricing and earlier in the process so that it doesn't become a surprise at the end. We see that 54% of abandonment in shopping carts today is due to unexpected costs. So if you can avoid those costs or somehow build them into your product so that they're seamless to the end customer, call it free shipping, but build your shipping costs into the product itself. Or taxes or whatever else you want to kind of put into that could potentially increase the selling cost. Building that in there up front can make that a lot more attractive. And obviously, everything is data, right? So understanding your data, evaluating your customers and how they perform on your website, what's working, what's not working, where do they click, where do they not click, what products are they purchasing and not purchasing. There's a ton of data out there, and there's a lot of great platforms that will help you digest that data effectively that we can follow up with you on as well.
Perfect. And it looks like that is all the questions we have for today. So thank you, Tim, for presenting, and thank you to everyone for joining this presentation.